This video is the beginning of a brand new series called All the Toe Beans. I'll be working on 4 separate pairs of cat paws already prepped, sketched, and ready to render using oil pastels. Before we get started though, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Mary Kate, and I'm a self-taught artist taking the plunge to run a small art business named Calica Cat. I love using multiple mediums like wash, watercolors, and alcohol markers. As of right now, I'm obsessed with oil pastels. They're so creamy and easy to rework that I can't stop making personal art to hang in my studio. For my interests, I love to crochet, and I'm working on the longest project to date. I'm making a star blanket and accidentally chose the
smallest yarn possible.
I grew up playing Pokemon and other Nintendo games like Super Mario Sunshine, but as I've gotten older, Stardew Valley seems to speak to my soul the most. I also love anime, and my favorite ones are The Apothecary Diaries, Fruits Basket, and Yu Yu Hakusho. Speaking of anime and Pokemon, I have 2 cats. This little guy is named Yoko, after Yoko Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho. I thought they looked very similar, and he even has an anime sparkle on his chest. My second cat is Flare, short for Flareon. Her fur coat reminded me of a solar flare as well, so I thought it'd be fitting to shorten her name to Flare. She's the older cat of the 2, pretends to hate Yoko in my presence, but as long as I'm not interrupting their cuddle sessions, they get along so well. I know your secret, baby girl. Anyways, enough info dumping, let's move on to the core of the video. I have a set of 4 paws that I'm going to be working on. These were created to practice my values and decorate my walls with cute life-size paws. I was originally going to keep these paintings private, but while I was setting up Calica Cat, I realized these would be perfect to showcase to other cat lovers like myself. This series will be divided into 3 parts, and the second one will be a deeper dive into my oil pastel process. To learn more about the 3rd video, or catch the second one, make sure to subscribe and follow my Instagram to not miss out. Let's get straight into the process. This is the reference I used for this set of orange paws. I took a wooden panel, painted the base with Holbein Acryla-Gouache, and I love using the underpainting technique to really bring out the colors of my pieces. The materials I use are not complex, but there are a lot of them. All links to the products shown will be in the description below, so if you're interested, go check them out. I ended up choosing Artist's Extra Soft Gallery Oil Pastels by Mungyo over other brands because these had the best combination of texture and blendability. This cloud piece was the first time I used this set, and they blended together so smoothly and were incredibly easy to apply. There was even a point where I messed up the lighting on one of the lilac clouds. The process to take it off and fix it took less than 5 minutes. It was super convenient. When I was preparing to use these pastels, I laid out pages of swatches mimicking the underpainting. This was to get a better idea of how all the colors would look next to each other. I like to use zebra mild liner highlighters to get a close match. So now that the swatch setup is ready to go, I'm going to let you enjoy a quick yet satisfying time lapse of all these little boxes, and I'll come back once they're all done. Alright, now that those are finished, it's time to make the swatches. I like to focus on the lightest and darkest values first. As I said before, I want to make sure that I have a good point of reference as I'm working, and if for some reason I ended up going too dark for the lighter values or too light for the darker values, I can always adjust later and add them back in on an extra sheet or spare page in my sketchbook. I often end up filling either 1 or 2 pages in my sketchbook as extras. I like to have many options to choose from, as you'll see later on. The problem gets so bad sometimes that I'm forced to have a timer beside me. I need to make sure I don't overthink which colors I'm choosing to mix. I'll often use my phone as a reference point to make absolutely sure I got the values correct. A couple weeks ago, I picked up this cute chibi cat washi tape at a local art supply store, and every time I see it, I wish I had a fluffy white cat like the one from the Aristocats movie. Regal, diva, and knows what she wants and gets what she wants.
There is no such thing as diva down. okay? It's always diva up.
I'm pretty sure Flair already brings enough fortitude though. I don't think she would allow 2 divas in one household. But we'll see if that changes. Anyways, I like to line the sides of my wooden canvases with washi tape to ensure there isn't excess oil pastels staining the sides. I use Acryla-Gouache for the underpainting so I can adjust the opacity of the colors however I want. For the sides, I usually like them pretty opaque and to stand out from the rest of the piece. I really like the way a canvas looks on the walls with a splash of color from every angle. What? So it's important to me that those edges stay clean. We are so close to starting, but first I have to take as much of the sketch off as possible. I ended up getting a little lazy here. I got paranoid that all the underpainting would come off. Midway through, I did have to add some books to prevent the tabletop easel from moving and got impatient from that as well. The outline was unfortunately difficult to cover later. Let's officially get started on these toe beans. I like to start by outlining some of the finer details using a Col-Erase pencil in their lightest shade, and in this case, I'm outlining where the edge of the darkest value for the background will go. I don't want to go outside that line and overdo the hidden shadow inside the shadow. Inception shadow. Ooh. I really wanted to use complementary colors for the larger shaded areas, so I chose to stick with green leaning blues and some purples to accent the yellows and oranges that will be pretty prominent throughout the highlighted portion. I have to be careful not to cross the darker shades onto the right side and keep an eye on changing my values to be lighter as I move from left to right. I make sure to seamlessly blend the oil pastels in the shaded area because I don't want any underpainting showing through for that section. As I was blending the oranges with the blue background, I realized the blues far overpowered the oranges on the leg. This was an issue because I originally planned on adding fur texture towards the end of the rendering process. I previously tried out the technique in my sketchbook and it worked out great for the colors I used then. It looks like if I try to mix the oranges and the blues here, for some reason they won't separate from each other well. You wouldn't see any of the orange pigment come through at all. As much as I wanted to add the fur texture in, I opted out to avoid messing it up entirely and starting the piece over again. What I would have done differently is overline the orange areas before adding in the blue background and try out the technique that way. If I messed up, then I could easily go back over the muddy areas with a deep purple to fix it. I'm not gonna lie, these shadow colors are some of my favorite shades. Dark teal, periwinkle, royal purple. They are so stunning by themselves and together. Then again, as an artist, I have a really rough time choosing which colors are my favorite. I used to love the look of rainbows growing up. Maybe that's why I'm bisexual. But seriously, if I can find a way to throw in every single color, I will. And I love artists that strive to do that in their own pieces as well. There are so many talented people out there like Chris Hong, M. Hughes, Caroline Art, Prickly Alpaca, and so many more that I can't help but feel inspired to work towards that same level of skill. Might take many years, but the journey is worth enduring.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't.
For several years, I've been practicing multiple art mediums and I've narrowed them down to a few so far. I really love alcohol markers, watercolor, and oil pastels. I also really enjoy the matte look of gouache, but I haven't gotten used to adjusting the different water levels yet. I will get there though. Through sheer willpower, gouache will be a medium I master. I love feedback and sharing information, so if you have tips or references for gouache consistency, please let me know. I'm sure others could really use the help as well. Gatekeeping is not something I support unless it's copyright content. Speaking of copyright, haha, AI artists can't copyright their work now. Anyone else really happy that AI artists, or should I say generators, can't copyright any of their slop? When generative AI first came out, I just started taking art seriously and making progress, and that really scared me into not posting online. I thought there was no way to gain traction if I had to fight against literal robots. Now any art they make is totally useless, and there's nothing they can do about it. Alright, time to focus back onto these toe beans. With how bright the sunlight looks in the reference photo, I do need to focus on not overblending the the right side. I want to mimic that look as much as I can and use the underpainting to vibrate against the seafoam greens. That technique will help achieve the illusion of true sunlight. For this section, I wanted to keep the shadow between the paws very warm because the legs and paws themselves are warm. It is an orange kitty. I ended up changing my mind later, and since I am practicing my values, I wanted to stay accurate to what I was seeing. As I work through the highlighted area of the right leg, I have to keep in mind to constantly clean my oil pastels. One minor cross-contamination of one pigment from another, even if it's practically microscopic, can stain and ruin a whole section pretty quickly. I can get really impatient when it comes to making my art, and working with such a messy medium does test my ability to stay diligent. While Q-tips are really handy, there's only so much they can do to salvage a mistake like that. I've been dropping a lot of art knowledge, so I'm going to take a break from that and talk about why I'm starting Calica Cat, what it means to me, and what you will all see in the upcoming future. Calica Cat was always a dream, but never one that I thought could be in reach. I watched as others drew, painted, sculpted, and filmed, and believed for some reason that wasn't in the cards for me. I wasn't ever meant to create art. I still gravitated towards the arts in other ways through violin, singing, music theory, and fully committed to the idea of pursuing music education. After going through the music program at my college, I quickly realized my passion for music was not as great as many others in the program. I started questioning every decision I made leading up to that moment because I had firmly decided on either conducting a full orchestra or teaching music to kids since the beginning of high school. In this pivot, I thought back on what my life would entail, and my inner child kept nagging at me to try economics. I had always started fake businesses with my friends, like circuses or concerts where we'd post fake advertisements on a chalkboard outside my house. I even started my own pet sitting business and sent out my own ads written in Comic Sans. I was way too young to start working, allegedly. But when you're poor, doing nothing isn't really a choice.
Allegedly.
I continued this pattern into high school and started another small business with another friend of mine, and we played violin and cello together for weddings, local events, and restaurants. So economics seemed like an easy choice. As I started my degree and almost finished out my last year of college, certain circumstances forced me to quit altogether. Being poor was the biggest reason. Surprise! For years, I felt lost, like a total failure, and directionless. The pandemic, though, really forced me to face these thoughts head on. Others were feeling that same pressure, and this gave me enough inspiration to explore what it is that I'm truly passionate about. I remembered I drew doodles on my homework, projects, and other important documents that shouldn't have had edgy ornamental designs. I drew people I knew as anime characters, which they didn't really appreciate. My skills were pretty bad. I completely understood their reactions. The class I found to be the most relaxing was always art, and I never really noticed. One of my favorite days was learning how to make ceramics on a pottery wheel. I brought home a glazed bowl with a smiley face at the bottom. I was so proud of it that I used it until the bowl ultimately broke. I then remembered how art has always influenced my life in one way or another. That's when art became glaringly obvious again. Now that you have a better idea of why I became an artist, I'm going to talk about what the plans for Calica Cat are going to be. For now, I'll be uploading a YouTube video every 2 weeks minimum. My ideal schedule is to upload 3 to 4 videos per month as I get faster. I'm going to make illustrations, whether they be funny or emotionally inspiring, of chibi-fied animals similar to Animal Crossing or Chiikawa characters. I plan to make mini comic strips for Instagram and then upload that process onto YouTube. From there, I'll make stationery products like stickers, postcards, or memo pads to match those illustrations. I'll eventually branch out into plushies, enamel pins, and more. There will be 2 to 3 main characters starting out, and soon I'll open my Patreon for anyone interested in helping create these characters. I want as much input as I can possibly get, and I would love to have a community that actively participates and is excited to bring those characters to life. I'm thinking they'll all have a magical side to them, transformation outfit and all, but I can't animate yet, so bear with me for only providing an outfit. A goal of mine is to draw much faster and get significantly better at animating. Drawing digitally does have it out for me though. It'll probably be a few years until I can start animating well. I'm not sure I'll stick to a singular medium for the rest of time. I did choose art for the freedom and flexibility, and I hope to foster a community that embraces exploration and experimentation like me. Now that I've touched on what the future entails, I'm going to talk about how I came up with Calica Cat. I created Calica Cat from two separate ideas. The first comes from the fact that I'm a ginger appearance-wise. I know I haven't shown myself on camera, so you'll have to take my word for it for now. I'll likely show up in videos later, but for right now, I like the low pressure of just talking without giving away my full identity, just for the time being though. Calico cats really remind me of my freckles, red hair, pale skin, and brown eye color. I always felt like I could relate to the splotchiness and combination of colors, so I wanted something that alluded to a calico cat with a recognizable twist. The second idea came from my first cat that I fell in love with when I was just 8 years old. Her name was Callie. She was a tortoiseshell, so her name being Callie, short for calico, was humorous and adorable to me. She's the reason I fell in love with cats in the first place. We played fetch together, and I remember one night during my first sleepover with friends, I woke up to her sleeping on the edge of my bed. I never knew before then, but Callie was curled up sleeping there every night since my family got her. I only had her for a short while though. Callie was an adopted old cat from the shelter, close to 12 years old, and she was diagnosed with stomach cancer. After 8 months of our friendship, we had to put her down and say goodbye forever. I was absolutely devastated back then because I did love her more than anything at the time. With Flair being a tortoiseshell, it was difficult to process the grief properly as an adult. However, I'm so lucky and thankful to have her help heal that wound, and I really wanted to dedicate my new journey to both of them. I love most animals, but cats will always have a soft spot in my heart. Thanks for sitting through my origin story, my future plans, and how I came up with Calica Cat. And don't forget, I'm going to be posting these pink paws as part 2 of this series. This one will mostly focus on pastel colors with almost a holographic look to it. Part 2 will emphasize the step-by-step process, how to use which materials, and how I go about choosing different colors. I hope to meet more cat lovers as well. I'm just finishing up this last paw with some final touches, and I'll see you at the reveal. Here are the finished toe beans! I'm super excited with how the colors turned out. I could tell that my eye for values was getting better throughout the process because I had to use my phone less and less as the piece went on. I'm disappointed I couldn't add the fur texture, but I think they ended up super cute regardless. I can't wait to work on the second set and show you the in-depth process of how I work on these. Thank you so much for sticking around. I had so much fun and I hope you did too. Let me know what you think of either the cat paws or anything else I talked about in the comments. Also, make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell to know exactly when I release another video. Lastly, show some love to my Instagram to see extra art, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!